Welcome to the Biz and Tech Podcast. My name is Blake Dowling. I am the CEO of Aegis Business Technologies. I'm sure you were aware there was a massive cyber incident in our community this week. Our hospital was impacted by an unknown cyber attack. This is tragic for them. It can happen to anyone. They have one of the best IT teams in town. We're rooting for them for a speedy recovery and that they're able to resume business as normal as soon as possible. In the meantime, use this example to make sure your cybersecurity is up to speed. Two-factor authentication, robust backups, advanced threat protection, MDR tools, which stands for Managed Detection and Response, cyber insurance, all of those things. Make sure you check the boxes, protect your organizations. If you have any questions, let me know. And today, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome Heidi Otway, President of SalterMitchell PR, to the Biz and Tech Podcast. Welcome, Heidi.
Hey, glad to be here.
Awesome. So let's get started. I've known you several years. You're a huge celebrity in our community. You have chaired the Chamber of Commerce. You're the president of a very, very successful company. How'd you get started in your career? What led you to where you are today?
Okay, so I have to go back to elementary school.
Let's do it.
We're going to go back to elementary school. So when I was 6 years old, I loved watching the news. I loved watching the news. And I remember telling my teacher, I think I was in first grade, that I wanted to be a reporter. I wanted to be on TV, that whole scenario. And it's so funny when I reflect on that, because I have my report card from first grade where my teacher wrote at the top of my report card, "Dear Mrs. Williams, Heidi does not know how to stop talking."
That is a funny note.
So I pursued, I guess, who I am. I'm a professional communicator. I mean, since 6 years old, I was always talking. I was known as the know-it-all. I knew everything that was happening, world events, all of those things. And when I was in middle school, I became a writer for the school newspaper. And everyone knew me because I was writing all these stories, and they were like, "Oh my God, what a great story, what a great story." And I just loved being able to inform people. Get into high school, back in the school newspaper, was also, class president, member of the marching band, drum major, very visible and involved. Other schools knew who I was because I was just so involved in my community. And then I come to Florida A&M University, study broadcast journalism, same kind of scenario. Sports editor of the FAMUN, very
Nice.
involved, very visible, active, played softball for 3 years at FAMU. People would come out, "Who's that person out there in right field that knows how to dive and catch a ball?" It was me. So again, just being out there visible. And then I knew when I left FAMU that I wanted to be in TV news. And I got married and had my first child right out of college. And that didn't stop me from wanting to be in the news business. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, why don't you check out some of these companies, that does news in Tallahassee and covers the Capitol and the governor and the policy and lawmakers." And I'm like, okay. And I get on with CONUS Communications, which was the first satellite news company in America. They had actually Tallahassee was home to the first satellite truck.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, CONUS created the satellite truck in Minneapolis, and they brought it to Florida. So we had the very first satellite truck ever created in Florida, here in Tallahassee. And I worked with my best friend, Lisa Hall, and we would chase around Governor Lawton Chiles and do interviews and beam it up via satellite. We would chase hurricanes in the truck, because Florida is known for our hurricanes. And it was the most exciting time of my life. 23 years old. I think I was one of the youngest members of the Capitol Press Corps at the time, doing
Wow.
interviews with the governor. It was great.
So you had the finger on the pulse of the
Yeah,
state of Florida at a
yeah.
young age. That's huge.
It was huge. And, the thing is, my life has always been on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. So lately I've been reflecting because I'm like over 50. So I'm like reflecting on these things. And people like yourself are asking me, tell me about your career. And I'm like, wow, I did all those things. You don't think about it, you just do. So
Sometimes it feels like another life when
it
I look back.
does. It does. And so then after I left CONUS, I went to Miami and became one of the youngest assignment editors at the #1 TV station in South Florida at the time, WSVN. So here I am, 24 years old, married with a 2-year-old. No, she was 1 year old, listening to the police scanners and directing the reporters, the anchors, and the photographers to gather news in Miami, my hometown. It was awesome. It was great.
That is awesome.
It was. I mean, we picked up some of the biggest stories that would go national because we were in Miami. But I wanted more. So then I had the opportunity to follow my boss at WSVN when she went to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I went to work for her at a TV station out there. And that was one of the most life-changing events of my life because when I was there, the Oklahoma City bombing occurred. And so I'm in a city, thousands of miles away from home, me, my husband, and my daughter. I was chasing tornadoes, covering snowstorms, and then Tim McVeigh decided to blow up a building. And I was there. I drove over to Oklahoma City within 24 hours of that and was covering that, not only for our station, but for the world, because we were beaming out video. And it was a moment of reflection for me and my husband. I was like, first of all, do we want to live here? Because number one, we had tornadoes, we had snowstorms, and then we had this terrorist attack. And we said we want to go home. We want to go back to Florida. So after that experience, we moved back to Florida. I went back to CONUS. This time, instead of being a lowly, part-time account, what was I? It was like a project manager or something. I became like the assistant bureau chief there and still covering the Capitol.
Right.
And that was fun. And then I moved back into TV stations and was the first managing editor, then assistant news director of NBC 40. They had news. We actually revived that whole newsroom for about 2 years.
Okay.
That was a lot of fun.
Outstanding.
It was, and that's when I got to meet a lot of the PR folks in town. So that's when I really got to know April Salter very well because she was working for Governor Childs at the time, and she had started her own firm by then. Gil Ziffer, learned of them, and Ron Sachs, all of those folks. I started, hearing from them because I was running the Tallahassee News Bureau. And I was always intrigued by PR, but I really didn't understand it. And in our industry at that time, all of us TV folks considered PR to be the dark side. So it's like if you worked in PR, you worked on the dark side. But little did I know that my life would change and I would be offered an opportunity to go work at the agency I'm at now. So April reached out and kind of recruited me and said, I'd like you to come and work in my agency. And Lisa Hall, who brought me in at CONUS, was there also. And the rest is history.
Well, you don't get to hear congratulations much when you're the boss. So from me to you, congratulations
Thank
on an
you.
awesome career.
Yeah.
I know that's the very short version, but that's
Yeah.
powerful. And a million questions are running through my head, but I'm going to try to stick to the script. So
Yeah.
what was the pull that got you back to Tallahassee from Miami? Well, we know why you left Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Why Tallahassee?
Well, what's interesting? I left Tallahassee 3 times.
Okay.
So when I graduated,
like-
I went to Miami.
Like Godfather, they keep pulling me back in.
I went to Miami, and then I came back. Then I went to Tulsa to take that position there and came back. And then I actually went to Tampa and worked. I was the first executive producer of the morning show for the CBS affiliate in Tampa. And when I was there, 9/11 happened. And I told my husband, I said, listen, I just feel safe and comfortable and rooted, I guess is the best word to say, in Tallahassee.
I got you.
Because we kept going, and then those roots would pull us back. Then we'd leave, and then the roots would pull us back. So we came back to Tallahassee, and that's when I made the transition over to Hurley Communications Group, now SalterMitchell. But what really brought us back was it was a great place to raise our children. We knew a lot of people, and to me, that's what community is who you know, what's the relationship you have with that person. I also like being in the seat of power for the state of Florida, just inches away from the state capitol and knowing what was happening that was impacting the entire state and all of its people. Like I said, I'm a know-it-all, and I like being able to know that. So family members from South Florida would call, what's going on with the governor? What's going on with the legislature? And I would know,
Right.
and I would be able to tell them because I had the pulse on what was happening. And, I heard this saying that all things start in Tallahassee when it comes to what happens across Florida. And I was like, I want to be a part of that.
It's like
And
in the
so-
fashion world, all things start in Paris, and Florida, all things start in Tallahassee.
Yeah, and I
like it.
kind of I like that, and I just like being close to that. And my kids, went to great schools. They had great friends. We have the universities here. We're one of the smartest communities in the state with the universities and TCC and the feeder schools and the satellite schools that have set up here. I think we have, 9 universities here? Or colleges and universities? I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, on my journey, I went to high school here in Tallahassee and started my career in Atlanta. And when I looked at the nation and the world, for that matter, where do I want to live?
Yeah,
I found myself looking at Tallahassee, Florida.
yeah,
And that was 17 years ago.
yeah.
And Tallahassee's been good to me. I know it's been good to you too.
It has
so
been.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I get people who reach out to me pretty frequently, saying, hey, you want to come here? You want to come here? And I'm like, no.
So speaking of Tallahassee, the Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce, you were their chair.
Yeah.
That is correct. What was that? What was that commitment and that journey like? Because it wasn't that long ago. Was that 18, 17, somewhere in
It
there?
wasn't long ago. Well, I don't know if most people know this, but I got involved in the leadership of the chamber when they split from. Remember, the chamber had a economic development council, and then it was the
Right.
chamber, and they were all under the same umbrella. So I got involved during that period of, it was kind of like a crisis situation.
I remember.
And I had already been asked if I would be chair, and I said yes, but it was 2 years away because there was Kathy Bell was the chair, Reggie Boudier was the chair-elect, and then I was in line to come in after Reggie.
That time flies when you make
time-
that commitment that far in advance, doesn't it?
So they actually voted, and my understanding is this had never happened before in the chamber, but I was the first chair-elect voted into the chamber board so that we had a succession plan as the chamber navigated how they were going to split the two entities and, move the chamber forward just as the chamber without the EDC. And so I started 3 years in advance. It's like I almost had the position almost 4 years because I was chair-elect working with Reggie and Kathy and the chamber board to navigate through that. Then Reggie became chair, and we decided to launch the first ever strategic plan for the chamber. So I was very involved in that. And then by the time I was chair, it was like, we just kind of moved that plan forward. It was like implementation, and my job was to make sure it got off the ground and that it continued, to move the chamber forward. So I didn't know that that was going to happen. It was one of the best experiences of my life. It helped me really understand the impact of business in Tallahassee. There's this belief that we're a government town. We're not. We're not. I mean, our private sector companies attract a lot of people. They employ a lot of people. They pay really good wages to a lot of people. We need
Absolutely.
more of that private sector in our community. And that was part of my, push. We need more private sector because as the private sector grows, there's funds to support the nonprofit sector. The nonprofit sector has the funds, they can serve more of the people that need their services. So it's this like rolling effect. Because if you remember years ago, state government was giving to the United Way,
Right.
and then that ended under one of the previous administrations. So then the United Way had to change their model and started having to rely more on who? The the private sector. So it all, that was the one thing that I learned that just really made me realize how important it is to support our local businesses, to do what we can to keep the students here. I mean, we have all these universities, they come and matriculate, and then they leave. Like, why? Why? What can we do to get you to stay?
Yeah, we have 3 students on staff right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to
Yeah.
recognize that and help accomplish that mission.
Yeah.
So thank you for being part of that.
Yeah, I've had a lot of interns come through our company and leave, and I said, I have to fix this. We got to figure this out. And last year, I think I kind of sort of figured it out because we had 2 amazing interns, and we just started involving them in every single aspect of the company. Because sometimes when you're an intern, you don't really get into what makes the company run, the pulse.
Sure.
How do you get clients? How do you make money? How do you do those things? We engaged them in every aspect of it, and they were like, oh my God, I had no idea. I had no idea. So then we started saying, well, would you like to help us do this, do this day to day? And they were like, really? I'm still in college. I'm getting ready to graduate. Well, we have a position for you. They are now full-time members of my staff, and they are amazing.
That's awesome.
They are amazing.
Well, think about the training. You train them while on the job.
Yeah.
We had a young man at FSU that's currently with us now and approaching graduation date. I'm like, let's just go ahead and make you a full-time offer.
Right.
And he was my assistant, and somehow he was stolen by our services team.
Yeah.
He's no longer my assistant.
Wow. Well, I think what I've learned about
But
this,
you got to let people shine.
you got to let people shine. And I think what we have to learn about this new generation is they are the smartest generation. They grew up with iPhones. They grew up with Google. They can find out anything and everything. So for any business to shield them from what makes your business tick, you're going against them because they probably already know because they're so smart.
Right.
So you can't tell them everything, but tell them enough so that they feel like they are contributing. That's the other thing I've learned about the younger generation that we're bringing in is they want to contribute. They want to make this world the best place it could be. Let them. Are they going to fail? Yeah. Make that a teachable moment. When they excel, you celebrate them and get out of their way. And that's what I do with my young people. The majority of our staff are 40 and under. I'm the oldest after April, and I stay out of their way.
I am right there with you.
Yeah.
Like everything you're saying.
Right.
I've been thinking lately, it's time for me to get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
That's why I'm here at the studio today, talking about you.
And that's why I'm here myself. There are meetings going on in my company right
Same.
now. And they text me, Heidi, da-da-da-da. I text back, da-da-da-da, and let them do their thing.
It's funny you say that. The phrase I use constantly now, which to the point where the staff makes fun of me for it, but that's okay. I have thick skin. Take point. I got an idea. Take point. Do it. Take point. Take point. That's pretty much my go-to response for anything.
That's good because we're a team, and every team has a contribution to the whole. And I always try to figure out, okay, what is your what is that? What do I call it? Not your secret sauce. Oh God, I need more coffee. But what is your maybe it's something like secret sauce. But what do you bring to the table? Essentially,
Superpower
what is,
kind of
your
thing.
superpower.
Superpower.
Thank you.
Teamwork.
I did a whole session on
Teamwork.
superpowers with young people. So what is your superpower? Because that's where your place is on the team. And so I figured out everyone's superpower, and I let them run with it.
Nice. And off subject a little bit, but if you all ever do a team building in-house and you want to borrow this silly idea we did once,
What is it?
we did go around the room and name your superhero identity. And what is your superpower? I
Yeah.
kept it going for weeks because we do a team building every Friday as part of our staff meeting.
Yeah.
So people would come up with their identity, then what their superpower is, then what their nemesis is, then what their secret layer is.
Oh, I love
And so we ended it
that.
with having an artist draw a rendering of everyone, which we have on the wall. It's pretty crazy.
I love that. We're getting ready to do our staff retreat the end of this month all day. So maybe I'll put that as an icebreaker.
It's good. It's good. You got to stick with it though, because there's some eye rolling that goes on, of course. But then once people get engaged, it's awesome.
Okay, good.
So you talked a lot about your career. If you had to pick a moment, what was the proudest moment thus far?
In my career?
Yeah. Or personal life.
Well, I would say for my career, it would be becoming president of SalterMitchell PR. That it was a goal of mine. I mean, I'm very intentional with certain things, and I knew I wanted to lead the firm, even in all the iterations of the company. And
How early did you know?
the seed was actually planted. I think I was like, so I started with the firm in 2003. So this is my 20th year with the firm. And April had a mentor. His name is Al Croft. And he wrote a book about how to run a PR firm. And she would go to Sedona, and they would have these round tables with all these smaller PR firms. And the wise sage Al would tell them, how to grow and run your company. So he made a visit to Tallahassee. And April said, I want you to meet Heidi. So I meet with him, and I just knew that he was the guy that wrote the book.
Literally wrote the book on
He
it?
wrote the book that was in my office, and he was just asking me all these questions and everything, and I'm just like la-di-da, just answering the questions. So afterward, he went to April, and he said to her, Heidi is the future of your company.
Wow, what a
And she
compliment.
told me that, and she said, and I'm gonna promote you to vice president of the company. Now, mind you, I hadn't even been with the company 3 years, but Al said that. And when she said it, it didn't register at all. And she was like, Heidi, did you hear what I just said? And I said, I think so. She says, I'm making you vice president of the company. And I was like, oh my God. She said, Al said, you're the one that's, doing this. And it was at that moment I was like, wow, I can do this. I can lead. I can make an impact,
That's huge.
And it was a huge moment. And because we're recording, I'm not crying, but it was one of those life-changing moments because my whole life, from where I came from, I grew up in a single-family home. Even though my dad was involved, my parents were divorced. We didn't have a lot of money. I mean, I lived in the projects. I've been around a lot of things that would probably keep people back or traumatize them or keep them from being who they may be destined to be. But I never let that stop me, and I thrive on hearing that I'm doing good or that I'm making an impact. I don't ask for it, though. I don't ask for it, but when I get it, it just kind of pushes me up a little bit more. And that moment pushed me up a lot. And I remember telling my pastor right after it happened, I said, I just got, promoted to VP. And he said to me, one day you're going to be the president of that firm. I'll never forget that. And I wrote it in my little notebook. One day I'm going to be president of SalterMitchell PR. And when April called me and said it, the first person I called was my pastor.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
If you could travel in time, anywhere forwards or backwards, where would you go?
I'll go forward. I'm a
Into the
sci-fi.
unknown.
I'm a sci-fi fan. So Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, all of those sci-fi shows in the space.
We're going to have to have a second show and talk about science fiction.
Listen, I want, that's where I would want to be. I
Did
want
you watch Firefly?
I want to, I watched the whole season. Yeah. I want to explore that. And the most exciting thing happened recently. My daughter's husband got a job at NASA.
Awesome.
So every time I talk to him, I'm like, any rockets going up today? Any rockets going up today?
Awesome.
I would want to go up
How
in that
far in
rocket.
the future? What are we talking?
When man is able to explore deep space.
Okay.
I would want to experience that.
I got a trilogy for you. I just loaned it to my friend Kim Galban.
I know Kim.
If you're interested, it's Worst Planet in the Galaxy. Alex White, I believe, is the author. Critics compare it to Firefly, but it's a great
Really?
trilogy of scavengers in a future where everybody uses magic.
Yeah.
And my book recommendation for today, for all of you out there, Rabbits.
Oh.
Ever heard of it?
No.
It's a mysterious book about a real life game that the world is the setting for the game.
That's interesting.
It's interesting.
You know, my friend David Lawrence, who's the chair and the founder of the children's movement in Miami, you know, every now and then I reach out to him to talk, and he always asks me, Heidi, what book are you reading? What book are you reading? And I'm like, well, right now I'm reading, Good to Great, or right now I'm reading Fierce Conversations, and he's like, no, not business books,
The good
Heidi.
stuff.
He's like, what fiction are you reading? Like fun, exciting. I was like, David, I don't do that. And he was like, you need to. You need to open up your mind. Stop focusing on business. So I'm trying to read more.
Well, it's tough, when business and personal life overlaps, as you know.
Yeah.
It gets a little gray. Business books are fun.
They are fun, but I did, during the break, I did read I can't even remember, The House Guest or some book like that, and it was an interesting read. It was funny. It was by Lucy Foley, a Lucy Foley
Was
book.
it about the island where they had the wedding on some remote island and there was a murderer?
I think that's the one.
Because I read that too.
Yeah,
I got it at
Lucy-
Midtown Reader.
yeah,
My
yeah.
wife said it was awesome. You should
Yeah.
read it. I read it. It was
I
great.
read it, and then the other one that I got from her is The Paris House Guest. That's the other one and I started it, but I haven't finished it yet.
Wow, good
I
stuff.
need to. So when you said that, it made me think of David Lawrence. I always hear his in my head saying, Heidi, what book are you reading? That's not business related.
So before we close today, important question: What's been the biggest challenge in your career and life?
Being the president of SalterMitchell PR. It's a big challenge because when you are, and I'm now, a partner in the firm, I'm responsible for all the people that we hire and that work for us and with us. They have families, or they want to have families. They want to have the best life possible, and I feel very responsible for having a role in that, a big role in that. And I want them to be the best they can be. I want them to have the best life they can have. I want them to be fulfilled, because that's what life is all about. I would hate for them to think back on their time with us and say, I wasn't the best, And so for me, the challenge is growing the company, growing the team, attracting the talent, helping good causes win, and making an impact in Florida, that can't be erased, Thankfully, we have a really good reputation, and that's also important to me to make sure that we maintain that. This is April's baby, and
Right.
I'm kind of in charge of keeping it, growing it, and all of that, and I take that very seriously.
Well, thank you for all you do in the community. When I hear you tell all of these stories and answer these questions, one word comes to mind: tough. You throw yourself out there, and you have since you were 6 years old.
Yeah.
To be able to keep doing that your entire career, you got to be just tough as nails, because you do a bad story for the TV or press, and someone yells at
Yeah.
you, and
Yeah.
shrug it off, keep going.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Anything you want to share before we close today?
Well, I appreciate you saying tough, but I think the word that I really lean on is tenacious.
It's a good word.
Just go with it. Do what you got to do.
Anything you want to share before we close?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. That was awesome. I feel like we need to talk sci-fi at length, but thank you for listening today. This is the Biz and Tech Podcast. We'll be back again next month. Don't forget about your cyber protections. Invest. If you've never done an email attack simulation, do one. If you haven't done cyber trainings, do one for your team. You'll thank me later. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you so much, Heidi. We'll see you next time. I'm Blake Dowling, Aegis Business Technologies, signing off.